Hello and thank you for tuning into another episode of the Bonus Point Rugby podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by our amazing sponsors. First off, Whalebird Kombucha. If you're looking for a great tasting beverage that is actually good for you, go try them out at your local Whole Foods, Air One, or other health food stores. Secondly, the Rugby Nation. The Rugby Nation are the leaders in strength and conditioning specifically for rugby players. Check out their website to get amazing fitness and nutrition programs to keep you rugby fit during COVID. Lastly, OsteoStrong LA. OsteoStrong is a unique state-of-the-art wellness center located in Mar Vista. It has outstanding results in strengthening bones, joints, and muscles. In just 10 minutes per week, you can increase strength, bone density, improve posture, balance, and most importantly for rugby players, your athletic performance. If you're interested, go check out osteostrongla.com to book your free consultation. Enjoy the episode. What's up, everyone? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Last Week in Rugby on the Bonus Point Rugby podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Tj Olsen. Very excited to get stuck in today and to talk about all the rugby. We've got the dream team back this week. So welcome back, head coach of Cal Poly Rugby, James Hala, and Tj Olsen, a.k.a. rapper Novel Capote. Gentlemen, welcome back. Good week off. How was your weekends? How are we doing? What's up?
Good, man. Yeah, look, the week off, I felt a bit lonely last week. So, yeah, I'm happy to be back on with you handsome lads.
And James, you're in Ventura at the moment. How's that all going?
Oh, mate, good. Yeah, just on a bit of a working holiday, so can't complain. Yeah. And I missed you guys last week too, but coming off of Bledisloe 3, it was probably a good time to have a week off.
Yeah, I bet you happy after the weekend. So,
and probably a good time to have a chat again after Bledisloe 4.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, all right. So, without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. And before I get too angry thinking about the Wallabies winning, but all right, let's jump in and talk about the Mitre 10 Cup rapid recap. So Southland take down Otago 32-15. Auckland win a close game against Northland 24-20, so they remain in their top spot in the standings. North Harbour win a convincing match over Counties, no surprise there, 32-5. Counties are not doing us any favours. The Marcos go down against Canterbury 29-0. So Canterbury had a pretty average last couple of weeks, and they got that pretty hefty win against the Muckles. Hawke's Bay get the W against Wellington, 34-18. Manawatu lose to Taranaki, no surprise there, 35-19. And lastly, the Bay of Plenty sneak in one to get the W over Waikato, 33-30 at the final minute. Shout out to my best mate, Matty G, setting up a try to beat my Waikato Mulu. That was a tough pill to swallow, to watch your best mate take you out of contention for your team, but it was good. But all the games were outstanding, so we're not really going to talk about a game of the week this week. I think we're just going to head straight into the Wallabies and the All Blacks. But before we do that, I know, James, you're a bit out of it when it comes to the Mitre 10 Cup. You don't watch it as consistently, but if you had to pick a winner from what you've seen so far, who would be your winner to take out the Cup?
Well, from what I've seen and what I've followed, I was kind of backing Waikato a little bit. I've watched a few games, and they look very good, and you kind of tipped me into a few wins on the sports tab. So Waikato were my team, but it's such a close competition. It's kind of week to week, anyone can win.
Yeah, Hala, what about you?
Yeah, man, I think Waikato are really the at the head. I am questioning their bench though, so it'd be interesting getting into the final weeks of the competition, the finals, to see what's going to happen there. I think Auckland have a stronger bench. But, we'll see. Waikato have been a form team, though. They've just been decimating teams. I watched the game on the weekend, and it was a great game, man. Like, a really solid game. And I'm going to be honest, I turned it off because I thought it was done. To my surprise, when I turned back on Fox, I was like, excuse me?
That seems to happen with every Chiefs match or every Waikato match. We seem to think that they're going to get the W and then see you later. It never happens. But I'm gonna take the fan in me wants to take Waikato to win it all, because obviously a big Mulu fan right here. But I think Auckland's going to take it out this year. I think they're going to really just power on through in the semis and the finals, and it's just going to turn out to be Auckland victory. But without further ado, let's get into what we really want to talk about, and that's obviously the Wallabies and the All Blacks. So James, I know you got to be happy over the weekend. It's the Wallabies getting the victory, but before we get into talking about the actual gameplay, I want to talk about the refereeing and some particular things that really played a pivotal moment in the game. So it's the fourth matchup between the Wallabies and the All Blacks, and they came out on the top, as I said. But before we kind of, I guess talk about the referee, I want to talk about the ability for the cards and how the red cards and the yellow cards, they play a big focal factor in it. And I understand the thought process around red cards and why headshots are an obvious focal point of safety in the game, but I believe, to the best of my ability, a lot of red cards are given with no real weight behind them, and other than appearances. And I'll give you a good example. Both red cards on the weekend, both given for headshots. Neither player received an HIA. Neither time did they go off the field and they got an HIA. So, in my opinion, if player welfare was the real case for the red card, an HIA would be given as well as the red card. You don't say, there's been a headshot, you go for the rest of the game, and then you just go, okay, the guy that got the headshot, you just keep playing on like nothing happened. If you really want to play the player welfare card, you have to undergo protocols that go the whole 9 yards. They don't just go for one particular person. So I've obviously got a pretty big opinion about this, but I want to dig in and start talking with you guys. So, James, I know the process changed a little bit after the World Cup, but does the thought process need to be rethought on the red card, or do you think that it's still valid?
Mate, I think where the sport is erring on the side of caution, and if you've watched the last 2 State of Origin rugby league matches, the way we do things are frustrating, but we're probably taking better care of our players than rugby league is. Watching State of Origin 1 and 2, there were numerous head knocks and guys playing on, and there's just league seems to pay lip service to taking care of its players. Obviously, we don't want to see Bledisloe Cup games decided by players in the bin with red cards. I actually watched that test match with one of the senior referees from NorCal, the guy Pete Smith. And so I was able to talk to him between the incident, when they were looking at the incident, and before the red cards came out. And I'm saying to Pete, like, while they're going through it, I say, what colour is this? Is this red or yellow? And he said, absolutely red. The way these are being refereed at the moment, they've got a framework where the referee doesn't have to make too many decisions. He has a bit of a flow chart where he'll say, was it direct contact to the head? And then he'll look for different mitigating circumstances. And so contact to the head starts at a red card, and mitigating circumstances can bring it down to a yellow or just a penalty potentially. Okay. So that was basically the Nick Berry really is just following decisions that are already made from him. And he's copying all sorts of grief around the world for this, but he's also trying to get selected next week. Yeah. And the referee, the senior referees who make these appointments, are telling him that this is the decision you need to make unless there's mitigating circumstances. And so I think given that was the case, he didn't really have a choice.
I don't disagree with that. I don't think you can ever look at a point and blame the referee, because he's under the banner of what IRB sets for him. He has to go with the checklist of everything that goes through. So yeah, I don't think I can, other than a few calls that I saw on the weekend, I don't think you can necessarily disagree with a lot of the calls that he made due to player welfare, because that's what he had to do. But in my opinion, I think the punishment sometimes that doesn't warrant a red card for a full game. I think that they should have something where yellow card's 10, a red card could be maybe 15, 20 minutes, or they go and report like they have in rugby league.
But that's what you.
And I was going to ask you, Hala, what's your thought on it?
Well, I can understand exactly what James is saying, and that any referee has to follow the protocol. So maybe the review isn't on the referee, but the actual protocol and the flow chart that's at play now. For me, the 2 instances were very similar, although I still think that Swinton's one was a little bit more of a deliberate no arms in the tackle shoulder charge, comparatively to Offer's one where he was a lazy prop that slid up to the head. Yeah. So, I mean, and the suspensions, I think Swinton got 4 weeks. Offer got 3. But maybe, going off what James said, you can't argue the flow chart. Direct contact to the head, straight to a red card. But I honestly feel as though going off what James has said, we need to look at that flow chart because, both of them they're tough to take. At this level of rugby, or any level of rugby, but especially this one where there's so much behind it, both financially and for reputation. I don't think that sending two guys off for the rest of the game 7 minutes apart, where we're playing primarily 14 on 14 and 13 on 13 at one point, 13 14 at one point, that it doesn't help the game at all. I'm definitely agree with James that Union takes a lot better takes player welfare, especially when it comes to head knocks, a lot higher than rugby league. And you've only got to look at the case of Boyd Cordner, Jake Freend, Cam Munster last night. Do you know what I mean? That's his third head knock this year. But I do think that flow chart and that protocol needs to be looked at because I think both teams were severely affected by those red cards.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And you also get the bad end of the stick when you have players like we were talking about it previously, Hala, when Akira has to go off to deal with the red card when he's having a great debut for the first, I think he got 15, 20 minutes in. He was having a great game. And then because obviously you need a front rower, someone who's on his debut has to go off just so you can even out the balance. So, yeah, it's very disappointing. And I do agree with you. Is the flow chart needs to look – had a better look at, but I agree with it. I don't think Offers was as malicious as the other one because, like you said, it was just right stepping at the wrong time at the defensive line, and Offer basically has a split second to react. Swinton's, I think, even though he had a pretty good game, he was an offensive and defensive force in this game. You could see right off the kickoff, he was just running straight for Sam Whitelock. He paused for a little bit and then no wrap in there. A bit more malicious. And I know he's one of your good mates, James. So it's probably something where you were looking at it and giving him a little benefit of the doubt. But yeah,
he'd been belting All Blacks for the first 35 minutes. He'd become a hero around Australia. Yeah. I'm getting messages from across the Pacific saying, he's laying out All Blacks like I haven't seen for 10, 15 years. And then
he was great. Yeah.
Yeah. But the other thing the referee said to me, he said, the more aggressive you are in all of these tackles, the more responsible you have to be for your accuracy. Mm-hmm. And if you get 5 or 6 of them right, and then you get the 6th one wrong, if you've been super aggressive into all these tackles, if you get one of them wrong with your point of contact, then that's not unlucky. That's reckless, and you have to pay the consequences.
I think we'll all agree that slow-mo makes everything look worse. So every time something's slowed down is we'll go to a TMO or something that'll look basically in real time. As soon as you put it in slow-mo, it looks 20 times worse.
100%, bro. When I run, I look a lot fatter in slow motion than in real time.
So TJ, on that point, mate, that's we're talking about kind of what modifications you could make to that decision-making flow chart. Mm-hmm. One of the mitigating circumstances might be that the referee watched it in real time and didn't consider it foul play. Yeah. You maybe add that to the flow chart, and that takes it from a red to a yellow. And I don't think anyone like Nick Berry had a really good look at both of those tackles, and he didn't think there was enough in either of those to stop play. And maybe that's a mitigating circumstance. Maybe that's enough to downgrade that from a red to a yellow.
Yeah. And that, what you just said there, for my mind, for both of them, 100%, if you didn't see it in real time and you were on the spot and you saw it happen, that needs to be that mitigating factor. And that's what Nick Berry didn't do is because, and not just Nick Berry, but neither Gardner on one side and I forget the other side of it, no flag was out, no one flagged it. So at that point in time, for both of them, I'm thinking, well, mate, don't let 3 or 4 phases go by and then you've got a video ref saying, hey, mate, let's look at this. That was what the disappointing factor is because now we're talking about like the TMO getting involved past play. So how that isn't a mitigating factor that 3 on-field referees didn't see it. If one of the 3 saw it, I'm more than happy to say, okay, cool. send them. But not one of those 3 on-field referees had anything to say about that. So that's, again, the frustration I feel rugby fans have seen on both sides is, well, let's have a look at this here. Like, if you thought that was okay and that was okay, why are you letting one guy make a decision up top through that flow chart and not say a mitigating factor is I didn't see it?
Well, I think we'll leave it at this. Is I spoke about it last week with Pete and Jeff, who joined us, and we were talking about how Ben O'Keefe, when his decision to disallow Dane Coles' try, when he had to go to the up to the TMO, and he said, "I'm happy with the grounding. I just want to check for other things." And then Angus Gardner came back in as the TMO and ruled against it. So I think some referees, they just need to back themselves. I understand we have the technology and we have the ability to check things, but if you think it's okay in real time, unless you're getting told by your AR, which, like you said, Hala, neither of them on the side told them anything. It was basically just they have to go with what they feel. If they feel like they need to get another look, then do it. But don't leave everything up to the TMO.
So, well, I just want to ask James, when talking to your mate, the one thing that annoyed me about both decisions was Nick goes to both ARs, "Are you happy with this decision?" Now, the problem here is well, clearly you didn't see it in the first place, so you couldn't have had an issue with it. And now all of a sudden, through that flow chart, you've got an issue. That's what, and this is where that discrepancy is. It's like, at what point is accountability for the on-field referees going to counteract what the TMO say?
Yeah, I hear. And mate, to be honest, I've sat in on a few judiciaries also, and if there's footage which is going to kind of get a player suspended, and we're looking at 4 to 5 weeks for a dangerous play, the referee not whistling it in real time and the AR's not coming in real time is considered evidence in support of the player being charged. So it's got to carry some weight. Like if you're, like I said, if you slow anything down enough, it's going to look considerably worse and more intentional. It's going to look more intentional, So I know we're trying to find a balance between protecting our players, which I'm all for, and trying to make sure that it remains a physical game and a contact sport, and that people aren't switching off and going to go switch on rugby league.
Yeah.
All right, we'll leave it there, and we'll talk about the footy, like the actual gameplay now, which I hope we can get into and I can be happy about. But the Wallabies end up walking away with the victory, and it came down to a lot of mitigating factors, like we were talking about. But I think one of the reasons the Wallabies got the W was the quick points on the board. They were able to get the All Blacks under the pump really quick. And when the Wallabies show that they can stay in the hunt with anyone, they're dangerous. And when they let points come in early, they kind of get a little bit down on themselves, and they get away from it, and they just it just opens the floodgate. But now they're starting to seem like they're gelling nicely as soon as they can get points on the board. So I want to talk about the back three first. Is aside from Korobidi, who was an absolute monster again, my standouts in the back line were Wright and Hodge. So a lot of doubt was cast over Hodge as the Wallabies fly half, considering he has played most of his professional career at 15 and 13, but he played a lot of 10 in his junior career. I thought he played pretty well in the driver's seat. So, Hala, what did you think of Hodge at the number 10 jersey?
Man, he outplayed Broden Barrett, hands down. Hodge had a great game, man. Dave Rennie, the master stroke genius of a coach, he's done it again. And all credit to Hodge. I think Hodge at 10, and what's missing even through James O'Connor is like he just backs himself, doesn't second guess, just makes a decision, and that's the decision he makes, whether that's a preconceived play or just on the spot. And I think that level, at that level, a fly half moving forward and just making decisions helps your back line just flow a lot better. Especially when you've got Baisami and Pattaya in the centers that just want a fly half that can just be like, let's go. So, that first try, they were both ready for that short ball or the long ball. The chip kick came through, and you saw what happens when they just moved that line. He was moving that line up nice and fast, which is completely different to how James O'Connor played in the first game and how Lolo Seal played as well in the last game.
Yeah. James, what are your thoughts on Hodge at 10?
Mate, in the lead up last week when I heard that was the selection, I thought it was kind of a conservative pick. and I didn't think that was going to give us enough attack and enough X factor to beat the All Blacks. I was very wrong, and I'm glad I was. I think he was. So I think we've been struggling with our 9, 10, 12 and our decision makers and our match managers. And I think Hodge was very good in terms of making decisions, organising, not just shifting the ball and putting his outside guys under pressure. That little chip kick on their first set piece, that sat the All Blacks back a fraction for the rest of the match. Mm-hmm. So even if we didn't score from that, the fact that we did that early and it found some grass, that's enough to take some of the edge off the All Blacks line speed. And a whole lot of kind of on-the-fly decision-making from him was much better than I expected. And then the other big thing out of Hodge is, like, the Wallabies, every time we go into a game against another Tier 1 country, we're at a disadvantage for goal kicking and we're at a disadvantage for kicking for line and for tactical kicking. And the Wallabies fans just basically accept that that's the case. We're going to kick fewer goals. We're not going to kick as well out of hand, and we're going to break off less territory on penalties. And with Hodge's 10, that's not the case. I think he only missed one kick, a goal. He had a booming boot, which got us out of trouble a heap of times, and he kicked well out of hand. And these are all things that the average Wallabies fan doesn't necessarily look for in his 10. Mm-hmm. We kind of look for – we're so accustomed to a certain type of Wallabies 10 that all the things that Hodge added were probably the difference in us winning and losing that game, and maybe we need to rethink kind of positions and kind of how we select our teams.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Hodge at 10 – oh, sorry, Tj.
No, you go.
I think Hodge at 10 too, especially being an outside back, he just understood the lines that, and he trusted the lines that his centers were going to run, and understood that, what he would expect from a 10-2. And those quick decision making that he was doing, especially in offense, he was really rushing at that line, knowing he had that extra half a second. And you could tell when the All Blacks were in defense, Barrett was lost. He didn't know if he was rushing, if he was sliding, and that really made the difference. And I think Hodge being a 13 really just, this is what I would do, and this is what I want my 10 to do. And that just worked the whole 80 minutes. That's honestly the first time I've seen a Wallaby backline in a long time just with all confidence run at them. And it didn't matter if they lost the ball or made meters or they kicked or whatever it was. The All Black defense, they weren't reading that. And for Anton Leonard-Brown to second guess what his line is in defensively goes to show how good that Wallaby backline was.
Yeah, definitely. And I spoke about it as well, as Wright also had a great debut performance, in my opinion, and he was able to get a try off his first touch for the Wallabies. And I think he's probably one of the best Wallaby debutants in the history of the game, and he had a pretty impactful game. So when I think of the back three for the Wallabies, Horabidi, he's in hands down. You can't not take him out. He's just been so impactful in the last four games. But the other spots are now up for grabs. A lot of people were saying after Dungunu's first two games, he was in without question. They were saying the Flying Fijians, that was it. But now it's kind of, we're pushing the limit a little bit. So you've got Hala Petty at the back and you've got Tom Banks in the back. A lot of people are after Hala Petty's performance. Some people are arguing for him. I'd probably go more Tom Banks. But James, if you had to pick the back three for the Wallabies, who would it be? Who would be after the last 4 Test matches? Who are you picking?
Corabedi picks himself, and I'm a huge fan of Tom Wright. For people kind of across the ditch and Kiwis, that selection and that performance may have come out of nowhere, but Aussies have been hearing about this kid for about 4 or 5 years since he was at high school at Joey's, and he was kind of considered one of the best young players coming out of Australia in a kind of era of 3 or 4 years. And I think he was the player of the tournament at a junior Olympics for the Sevens. Played a couple of years at the under-20s for Manly Sea Eagles and was just an absolute standout. So I think his performance, we've kind of been waiting for him to get it in a gold jersey, and I think he might be, I think he might start 60 or 70 tests for the Wallabies.
Yeah. Hala, if you had to pick your back three, who would it be?
Look, Wright just secured his spot for me. Better choices. on the pitch than Dangunu. Look, Korobidi, his work ethic is second to none. No one in Australia, in the back three for Australia, works as hard as Korobidi. And that's why he's there. I do feel if Dangunu can get his work rate up, he could take Korobidi's spot just on a skill-based level of, I suppose, being able to use Dangunu in a more functional way. Do you know what I mean? Like Korobidi, as for everything that he does, penalties at the ruck. He doesn't really clean out. He doesn't know how to. But again, his work rate is second to none. So that's why he's got the spot at the moment. For fullback, man, like everyone knows, I'm not a Haley Petty fan. I think he's towards the end of his career at the moment. And I think Dave Rennie's looking towards more Tom Banks. Which I think is a completely fair assessment. So that would be my going for the moment if I had to choose Korobidi, Wright, and Banks. But I do want to say, like, I think Dangunu's just got caught up in the hype train a little too early, and he just needs to calm himself down on the field. And I think you'd see him replace Korobidi's spot in the near future. But I agree with James. Tom Wright's there for a very long time. That was outstanding, and I've seen him play a lot of the junior years too, and James is right. Everyone was just waiting for him to get into that jersey, and he's not letting it go anytime soon.
Yeah, that's good. And now I want to talk about the halfback situation, because someone I hated as an All Blacks fan, but knew the Wallabies fans loved on the weekend, was Nick White. And I know halfbacks are supposed to be lippy, they're supposed to be a pest, and they get under everyone's skin. But I think Nick White has created a new definition for that, because he got in a fight with almost... I don't know, because he got in a fight with almost every All Blacks player on that pitch. But in the end, it works out for the Wallabies, because all the All Blacks got frazzled. I think my favourite meme is you've got when you're about to fight with your little brother, and then your mum walks in, and the first photo is TJ Perenara about to murder him, and the second photo is him patting him on the back and going, "Oh, it's okay," because Angus Gardner's standing there right there trying to give him a penalty. But Hala, is White's demeanour and play what you want in a halfback and what got them over the edge, or do you think he went a bit overboard being a pest?
Oh, that's his job, man. That's who he is as a human being. That's how he's always played his rugby. So he's never going to change, man, and it worked on the weekend. I will say, though, he's got to be careful, because coming up against a South African team or even like an English team where they're quite quick off the ruck, he could find himself a few elbows to the face, couple of cut eyes. But on a playing level too, I feel he loses some pizzazz when he keeps up that lip. Tate McDermott, for me, I've always been a Tate McDermott fan. Nick's service just isn't as fast. And so I think that pestiness is awesome, because it slows down that play a little bit, gets the ref on the other guy's side, which gives him some time on the field to get that ball out of the ruck.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's deliberate or it's just worked out that way, yet to be seen. But dude, you can't. Dude, man, like as a halfback, that's what you want, bro. You either got George Gregan or you got him. Do you know what I mean? Both great.
Yeah.
But the pestiness wins, especially when you're playing a pest in TJ Perenara.
Yeah, and he's been deemed as Australia's best best halfback right now. James, what are your thoughts on it?
Disagree on that.
I think he is. I don't think he'll start in 3 years at a World Cup. But I think right now, if we're trying to win a test match against the All Blacks, I think he get picked. But I agree with everything Hala said. I think he was a pest. I think he was. I think he got Perenara off his game a little bit. I thought Perenara was poor. And mate, I've also got a theory that I think Nick White did something pretty significant to one of the All Blacks early in the game, or said something awful, got away with it, and I reckon they've circulated his number, and the All Blacks have kind of spoken within themselves, and they've said, let's make an example of him and let's get him.
Yeah, because basically, and I can't remember what player it was, but I don't think he even touched Anton Leonard-Brown, and then he was in the try line, and Leonard-Brown wanted to murder him and threw him about 10 meters. So, yeah, I agree with that. I think definitely something must have happened where he's basically turned around, said something, and it always happens in a club rugby game. Someone comes out and goes, okay, number 6, everyone kill him. So, I agree with that. I think there's no other logical explanation.
I'm pretty certain that happened. Like, just watching it in real time, I thought all of the All Black stuff was overreactions, unless he got away with something very bad early in the game.
Yeah.
So it might have been some foul play, or he may have said something that pushed the boundaries and stepped over the line. So all of those overreactions, I think, probably came from something which wasn't picked up by the ref.
The reason why I agree with you, James, too, is you can see there's a camera angle where Leonard Brown's got him, and he looks like he's about to swing. And in the background, you can see Hodge, and Hodge looks at it, and he's like, you did this to yourself. And it's like, turns away. And I'm like, if your own teammate doesn't rush in to break that up, and he knows that you've done something that warrants you to get a hiding.
Yeah.
Nick White is your mate. Nick White's your mate where it gets in a fight. You let the other guy get 2 or 3 shots on, and then you break it up.
Oh, man. He's not the first halfback to do it. He's definitely not going to be the last. So yeah, I can't wait to see if this continues on. But the last person I want to talk about, who I thought had an outstanding game, and who's someone who has been questionable, or people have questioned him as a test player, is Matt Phillip. So I really liked his intensity on the weekend. We've spoken a lot about the lack of depth in the lock position when it comes to the Wallabies, and although that is true, you can definitely say Phillip deserves that gold jersey now. So, James, I know you've been a pretty big advocate for him getting a Wallabies jersey. What did you think about his gameplay on the weekend?
Well, that was by far his best game as a Wallaby, and I think he's kind of grown into that jersey a little bit. I haven't always thought he's been a test player, but I think these last 4 matches, he's kind of grown a fair bit, and he's grown into the jersey, and I thought he was very good. I thought I'm hearing some commentary around the traps from highly regarded people who thought he was our best Wallaby, either him or Corabetti. And in terms of a turning point in the match, the line-out steal at halftime.
Yeah,
the All Blacks. That's an absolute turning point, and you just imagine how much confidence that would have given him going into halftime. And we've really struggled to stop the All Blacks line-out. And across most of those 4 games, we just haven't been contesting it.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of part of what happened in that play, that All Blacks were expecting a no contest. Phillip gets up, steals the ball, and that's massive. So he's also high work rate around the park, pretty good physicality, bends the line a bit with his carries. He does a fair bit at a kind of test level, which is pretty good.
Yeah, and he signed an overseas contract, which is a bit disappointing. So he heads off next year. So that's another loss for the Wallabies. Hala, what did you think about Phillip on the weekend?
James just summed it up then, man. The game-changing play was that line-out steal before halftime. And for the Wallabies to be able to disrupt that, that's big, man. And they came out that second half firing. I thought his carries were great. His work rate was it's increased throughout each game, I've thought. And perhaps that's just the growing confidence that he's got, just to, get his head in, and do what he has to do. So I honestly thought he was great. I definitely did rate him like him or Corabetti. And I had Hodge up there too, as the 3 best players on the field. And I think too, but he's quite a big lad. He just physically backs himself in the contact. Which I didn't really see during Super Rugby. It was almost like he was just sort of going through the motions. But the last couple of weeks, you can see when he goes into contact, he's really he's trying to break someone's bones. He's making that getting over that gain line, which has been that grunt that the Australia really has needed.
Yeah, sure. Especially if Rob Simmons is your other lock, and you get very little grunt from him, but you get line out. You need somebody on the other side at lock who just carries more of the load in terms of the physicality, and definitely. I thought he performed that role very well.
Also, too, having 2 specialist second rowers made a big difference for them as well. You know, with nothing to, you know, nothing against, totally forgotten his name.
Salakalotu.
So yeah, you know,
How could you forget his name? You love him.
I do, and he's Tongan, so you know. But yeah, I think having two specialists, and look, Rob Simmons is, like James said, isn't the most aggressive player in the world, but that it worked dividends for the line out, and then especially the counter mauls made a big difference too.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely a beast when it comes to that. You can see him going through every time. He doesn't care. He's swimming through those mauls, trying to mess it up all the time. But let's talk about the All Blacks now. So,
hold on.
So I don't think they had a bad game. Not everyone, but let's talk about Nick White's opposite first, TJ Perenara. So everyone knows on this show, Hala and I have been a strong advocate for TJ getting opportunity in a high stakes match. We were
wrong
for the All Blacks starting 9. He's one of the hardest workers in the room. He's consistent on both sides of the ball, especially defensively, and he played well in a black jersey before. But this past weekend, I thought this was his opportunity to say, I deserve this jersey just as much as Smith. I am New Zealand's best number 9, and his performance was average at best. It's all year during Super Rugby Aotearoa, I've looked at him and I've said he's equal with Smith. He deserves that. And although it's just one game, I just feel the gap now has just widened a lot more, especially with him having one foot out the door, going to play for the ironic Red Hurricanes, leaving the Hurricanes to go play for a year. But James, what did you think about Perenara's performance on the weekend?
I think he's outstanding, and I think that game on Saturday was maybe one of the worst I've seen him play. But he wasn't terrible. We just hold him to such high standards. The other thing I think probably to consider is the fact that I heard a stat that I think he's come off the bench for the All Blacks something like 45 or 50 times.
Yeah.
So if you're, I don't know how many games he started for the All Blacks, but especially halfbacks sometimes find themselves getting kind of shoehorned into being either starting halfbacks or finishers, and there's a fair bit of difference in those two. So I thought, I don't know how much of that was a factor, but I think, look, whenever I see Perenara coming off the bench against a kind of slow, fatigued opposition, he just tears them up and has such an advantage. And I think him starting against a fresh, energised side, I think he saw less opportunities, probably met with a bit more physicality, a little bit less time to operate. And I don't know if how much of that is him just being comfortable coming off the bench and less comfortable starting.
Well, yeah, it was basically him and Kerbalo were basically the halfbacks for a long time that were coming off the bench. And I thought the same thing about Anton Leonard-Brown, because he was always the 23rd man. He was always coming off the bench and he was always making that massive impact. But I think obviously positionally it's different. He was able to turn up and say, I'm a quality 13. But Hala, I know you've got a lot of a big opinion about this. What did you think about Perenara?
Yeah, man, look, I wrote some notes. So I agree with everything James has said. I think this is the biggest difference between your Super Rugby campaign and then at international level. At Super Rugby, the speed's that little bit slower. So TJ still has that time to, do what he does in the last 20, 30 minutes of a test match. Even at Super Rugby as the starting halfback, if he does want to do those quick darts, they work because it's Super Rugby. It's not international level. And it's going to be that little bit faster, that little bit more aggressive, that little bit smarter. What we saw on the weekend, I thought, same thing as James, is you saw a halfback that's used to closing out games, not working through games. And again, this is where that difference is. I think Aaron Smith understands the level he plays at. So when he's at Super Rugby, maybe he doesn't shine the best, but he plays at that level that he needs to play in order to get the work done. As soon as he comes to international level, he knows, well, I'm the guy, I'm the 9, I need to get the ball out. I know where my 10, 12, 13, 15, 14, 11 are at. So he understands and takes that leap to that next level. I think there's a little bit of TJ that just hasn't had enough experience to do that. So he fell into that closing, that finishing, or even at Super Rugby level. And the biggest point I want to point out is when they got that penalty, 30 meters out, and he takes a quick tap.
Yeah.
Kicks the ball out, and it's an Australian feed back on the halfway. Do you know what I mean? That's autonomous. That's not thinking. That's you like, we've got 10 minutes left. Oh, 20 minutes left. Let's catch him napping. Had he made that play in the 65th, 70 minutes, that was a penalty for all days because Nick White definitely wasn't getting back to make that tackle that fast. And so the economy of a player's mindset to be a finisher or a closer
it's just like routine for him.
Sorry?
Yeah. It's just like routine for him. It's just
100%.
Like that's, yeah.
And that's the thing, and that's what lets him down. I think contrary to that, you see someone like Weber who's built in the same mold as Smith, where he knows when he gets that All Black jersey, because it seldom comes around, he actually shines like a light. And when he came on, he actually looked better than what TJ did when he came on for Smith the last couple of games. That ball was slick. When he darted, it was the exact right times, made the right calls. His box kicks were a lot better. Do you know what I mean? So we're looking at TJ, and I'm guilty of it, where I put him on a pedestal thinking, right, he's built for this test match rugby. Let's start him. But we found out that he isn't. And James is right. He didn't have a terribly bad game. But because of the standard that he set himself for so long over the last 80 test matches, we just saw one of the worst performances of his whole career. And it's sad to say, but, maybe he isn't built for starting for the All Blacks,
I feel like I'm getting disciplined right now because it's my name as well. I'm sitting there going, oh, man, I did such a bad job. No, but I agree with that. It's a lot of people are making the argument that because Weber's gameplay is very similar to Smith, that team that was on the field would have been a lot better off having Weber in the starting jersey. I do agree with that. It's definitely something where if you're playing a backup for so long and you're coming on to finish our games, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just basically how he's played for so long. I also think too, like the one thing where Smith does shine is his relationship to any 10 that he plays with. It's not the same. And I fear as though TJ is always going to be the dominant character coming on with 20 minutes to go. Like, all right, cool. Let's roll this. He's looked at the game. He's seen how the 10's swinging and he can adapt, but he still makes those calls because you can see in the first 3 test matches when he did come on, he was reading the play and he'd cut, come right, and then you'd see him go left, and that was the best decision because he's read the play. Whereas Smith can do that all the time, I fear TJ just during the game just couldn't read what Bodie was doing because there was a lot of balls that weren't going the right way, like they weren't straight, they weren't to the chest, and that goes to show the relationship of reading what your 10's going to do. And he just didn't have that 60 minute or 50 odd minutes. All right, this is what we're doing. Let's go. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully he gets another shot and he's able to redeem himself the next time. But let's talk about
send him. He's gone next year anyway.
Send him. Oh man, he's coming back. It's not like he's leaving forever. We're getting him back.
I'm on the Brad Weber train now.
Oh my god. You're just a one and done. You're like, get him out of here.
That's it.
All right.
Bro,
the last thing.
I trust you until you lose it.
One chance, though. One chance.
Russ, that's all my ex-girlfriends gave me.
Get out of here. Okay. All right. The last thing I do want to talk about is the physicality. So we've said on the show many times that if the Wallabies try and outmuscle the All Blacks, it doesn't work out for them in a lot of cases. It's just not their style. But this time it really worked out well for them. The Wallabies really muscled up in a lot of instances, and I feel like they got the other side. You had like guys like Phillip and Swinton in his starting lineup that really came and they belted the All Blacks. And you saw in the moment where Tupou and Bell, they came up and they demolished the AB scrum. It was something where physicality was just very evident with the Wallabies. So I'll come to you first. Did the Wallabies get the better hand of the ABs, or was it something else like the red card or the Nick White frazzling the team that was able to get under the All Black skin?
No, man, this is coaching genius from Dave Rennie. Dave Rennie's instilling a culture. They ain't shit. Who cares? It's a jersey. They're rugby players. We're as good, if not better. And there's an arrogance about that that I love. And Australia's missed out on that for a long time. You can be the most physical guy in the world, Swinton, and then like James, one bad decision and you're off. The fact that you've got guys like Bell especially, like that was just beautiful. That he didn't care. I don't care if there's an allurement of the All Black jersey that Rennie just does not care about. And you can see that changing in the last 4 weeks. And what we saw on Saturday wasn't the All Blacks not playing great. It was the Wallabies finally just being like, we don't care. You are nothing but a 15-man rugby team, and we're going to beat you and bash you. And you can't – and, any self-confidence, that's what has been lacking with the All Blacks. And we saw that on the field. They were brutal. They literally beat the All Blacks, bro. And I don't mean by the score, I mean beat them up. And it was, and you know what? I hated losing, but it was awesome just to see that self-confidence grow over the last few weeks, especially 2 and 3. Like that's a tough pill to swallow. And to come out in 4 and literally just get violent and back yourself is nothing but awesome for Australian rugby. And I honestly feel that that's coming from the coach down. Being, his cutthroat mistake, you make a mistake, you're out, someone's in. That's what the Wallabies have really needed for a long time. And I think now it's like, if you prove yourself, then you stay. But you got to keep turning up. This jersey is worth more than that jersey. And it's really good to see. And that's how they beat them, bro. They literally just self-confidence, brought the violence, and just honestly believed in themselves 100 times more than the All Blacks believed in themselves. Yeah. That in itself is a big win.
Yeah, it definitely is. And James, you've said it on previous occasions, is that a lot of these players who are coming into this new Wallaby squad, they've beaten the All Blacks in under 20s, and they don't fear the jersey as much as they do. Is that something, plus the coaching, is that something that's bringing out this physicality?
I think that might be a factor. There's also a factor that Rennie has selected in favour of physicality. So, like the selection of Swinton, he's not going to put anyone through a gap. He's probably not going to offload with one hand, but he just loves contact. And that's something you can't coach. And selecting for that and rewarding that in selections makes a pretty strong statement. And we have a bit of that all over the park. So, like Ned Hannigan coming back into the Wallabies is about physicality. He's a guy who loves contact. Yeah. Tupu, extremely physical as a tight head prop. Korobetti's physical as a winger. Hunter Paisami is like very physical as a 12.
Oh, he's great. So he's great.
And then Hodge has very good contact skills. So we're now like probably 7 or 8 of our 15 guys are kind of whackers and probably going to win some contact and hurt a few other guys. And I think the way that Rennie has selected early in his tenure has made a pretty strong statement that kind of winning physicality is a bare minimum, and you're not going to be a good team unless you get that across the park.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, before we jump into the bonus point segment, I want to ask you guys about your biggest takeaways from the last 4 test matches. It's not very often we get to see the Wallabies and the All Blacks go up against each other 4 times in a row, so it gave us a great insight into what both teams look like moving forward in this Tri-Nation series and to the future. So, James, I'll start with you first. What are your biggest takeaways?
So I think the results are a fair reflection of where we're at relative to the All Blacks. There was a draw, a close win, and 2 pretty heavy losses. And I think that's probably a fair reflection of where we are. You could say going into this 4-game series, if you looked at how many young, unproven kind of Wallabies players were getting starts, you could say that that's quite a good result considering how little experience at a test level our average players had. So I'm trying to stay upbeat about it. Games 2 and 3 did not look good. Even parts of game 4 didn't look great. But I think you have to give Rennie some time. You have to give the players some time to build combinations. And I think I'm always looking at things kind of through the lens of a 4-year World Cup cycle. Yeah. And I think over the last 4 games, we've built our depth really well. And some very young, talented players got some experience at test level and did quite well. And so I think I think this has been positive. I'm feeling a little bit better about the Wallabies now than I was 4 weeks ago.
Hala, what are your thoughts?
Look, I think the Wallabies are definitely on the up and up. Someone who's a big fan of Rennie, I just hope Rugby Australia keep him around long enough and don't interfere with his process, because it can be a little alternative, especially with his cutthroat approach to selection.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Australia are going to be pretty dominant coming through to the next World Cup. On the All Blacks side, look, I think Foster may have to start looking into his ranks, and not only just for the players, but into his coaching staff too. The game 1 and 4, way too erratic. Maybe there's a culture of cockiness seeping in. Who knows? But he needs to have a look at that. Games 2 and 3, they've shown that they are, with the right 15 on the field and the right bench, are untouchable. But I think that the All Blacks are quickly finding out their ranks aren't as deep as they thought they were, which is probably a good realization a couple years out before the World Cup. In regards to the games going back to back, personally as a fan, I loved it. I think what we're seeing is the awesomeness of being able to watch, okay, well, what are you going to do within a week? You know what I mean? When you've got, 2 or 3 weeks between games, you're looking at way more footage, you're analysing the opposition a lot more. And within the 4-week block, you've got coaches that have to sit down, just like in club rugby, what are we going to do? Here's what didn't work, here's what worked. And I think that actually works for the Wallabies a lot more than the All Blacks.
Yeah.
So, which was really interesting. And I'm looking forward to the Tri-Nations moving forward. One last point. I think that Richie Mo'unga is quickly cementing himself as possibly like a legacy fly half, and possibly in that realm of one of the GOATs. I'm just really enjoying how he's playing. Once his confidence is there. So let's hope he sticks around, because it'd be awesome to see his growth in the next few years.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'd say he's on the rise to that. I don't know if I'd give him a potential GOAT title there. That's a good one to throw out, but he's definitely playing very well. But I think from my perspective, the All Blacks are kind of in purgatory right now. So they've obviously had some convincing victories during this Test campaign, but they've also had some convincing losses. And I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to find their identity again. So they've come out of a long relationship with Hansen, who has brought them a lot of leadership and a lot of success. They've got a brand new captain steering the ship, and a big mix of veterans and new talent, just like the Wallabies do. And I hate to say this, but I think Fozzie, after seeing this campaign, I don't think he's the right man or the perfect man for this job. I know it's the coaching.
Talk about throwing stuff out there.
Well, I know it's the All Blacks MO. They've always been head coach, promote the assistant coach to the head coach. But I think Razor, in this situation, with all the COVID situation, the new leadership, everything, I think he would have been a better successor. I don't believe Fozzie's putting together the best 23 for the game. Majority of the time, I feel like he's putting together the best individual player for that position. And that may work out in some cases against some tier 2 teams. But in this situation, it doesn't work well when you're trying to gel pairings together, like your midfield or your back row or other things like that. Players have to work together, and they can't just be individually great. So I think we can't do anything about it now, because Fozzie's obviously the man, and he's got it. But I think once he starts thinking about pairings, that's going to be something that's going to really help him out more, and how he fixes his depth. But I think in Australia's case, they're a force to be reckoned with. They've proven again that they are now finally ready to keep us on our back foot. We're not just going to walk in and go, we're going to win this every week. And that's what it was like for so long. It was so much cockiness. I think Dave Rennie's leadership, along with the great pool of young talent and some older veterans to help teach them and kind of guide them along the way. If you can go toe-to-toe against the All Blacks and have an almost 50% win record, COVID or no COVID, I think you're heading in the right direction. So I think the Wallabies are definitely going to be great for Australasian rugby. I can't wait to see them play any team again. Any final words before we move on to our bonus point segment, James?
No, mate. I think we covered it.
Ready? Hala?
Matt Taylor, the new defense coach for the Wallabies, he's the man.
He's good. Yeah, he's real good. All right, it's called the bonus point for a reason. Today we're talking all about Super Rugby. So I feel like we just finished both Super Rugby AU and Aotearoa, but we're looking to the future, and we're looking at the draws that have just been released for 2021, showing both Aotearoa and AU looks like they will remain separate. So I really enjoyed both competitions in Australia and New Zealand this year. I'm very excited for next year, but I feel like this was a missed opportunity for Super Rugby as a whole. I think that we could have had a great Australasian competition between Australia and New Zealand. I feel like we could have got a nice Pacific Island team. There was rumours about getting a Fijian team in there. I think that was a missed opportunity. But I also think that if we keep this same format, I think adopting a Heineken Cup format where we have the best teams of both competitions, whether it's the top 4 or the top 6, play for like a European Champions Cup or something like that to see who's the best of the best. I think that's what fans want, and I think it's great for rugby as well, because although I did enjoy both competitions, you still need some games, in my opinion, to have some trans-Tasman derbies, and I feel that's the case. But James, I'll come to you first. What are your thoughts on keeping it separate?
TJ, I think you may have missed a press release about 2 or 3 hours ago.
What?
That said there was going to be New Zealand and South Africa. Sorry, New Zealand and Australia are going to have their own internals, and then there's going to be a 6-week competition, trans-Tasman, to finish it.
Bang! There we go. Yeah, breaking news.
Yeah. So I agreed. When I saw the Super Rugby AU draw released, and it was only Australian, I thought that was a missed opportunity. I thought that was disappointing.
Yeah.
But it's a 10-week Aussie and NZ. Everyone plays each other home and away with a bye in there, and then at the end of that, I think each of us plays I think they both play a final series. So you name a Kiwi and an Aussie, and then I think they play a brief crossover trans-Tasman, which will just be 1 versus 2 in a final at the end.
Nice. My dream just came true. That's awesome.
So we can discuss this on next week, but I think that's probably. Yeah. So I think that's probably because Australia had to. They've just negotiated a new broadcast deal.
That's what I do want to talk about. Yeah. So that's something. So the amazing signing that came over. So in the media, usually if the Wallabies beat the ABs, that's number one news. But now you've got the amazing signing that came from the AU competition. That wasn't a player. It wasn't a coach. It was a $100 million deal for the TV rights. So Rugby Australia, they parted ways from Foxtel after 25 years and embarked on a new era with Nine Entertainment and Stan. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So all right. Yeah. Let's talk about that.
This is a whole other. We can probably break this into a whole other podcast, but obviously very positive for Australian rugby, and this is one of the most positive weekends for Australian rugby in some time off the back of a Wallabies win. Yep. Wallabies win, the rejigged Super Rugby format, and the broadcast deal. All three of those things very, very positive in terms of setting Australian rugby up for success.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, maybe we'll save this for another episode because I'm getting news flying in at me. But Hala, what do you think about this new format for Super Rugby? Do you like it, or do you think that it should have been morphed a little bit, or?
No, look, man, I literally, while you guys are talking, I just looked it up, and it's
awesome. Breaking news.
Yeah, so, look, it literally just broke. Yeah, James is right. This is all new.
A couple of hours ago.
I really do enjoy it. I think that it's what's needed. I was a little worried that there wasn't going to be any trans-Tasman games. I think it's very beneficial, so I'm glad that it's happening. I think, too, it's in good stead that there is that, the Super Rugby Championship game is going to be between the top from each side. So that's going to be good moving forward. In regards to the Stan and Channel 9 thing, that's amazing. I actually didn't believe it. I thought it was fake news for a little while, but I just couldn't see free-to-air television buying into this at all. But seeing that Stan's on it, it's good. Now I'm going to have to cancel my Foxtel account so I can get Stan for next year.
Well, that's the thing. I think this is the first time in over 25 years that any rugby union aside from, I guess, Shoot Shield and like a Wallaroos test match, any professional full-on Super Rugby has been free to air. So I think it's a great move. It's going to be great for the ARU. And from somewhat of the news that I heard is ARU was basically on the brink of bankruptcy, and they were struggling. This big influx of cash comes in and it really helps them out. So do you guys understand where the correspondence is between the free to air and the paid? So with Stan and with Nine?
I think I've got,
you're right, James.
So I think the super matches and the Wallabies test matches are free to air live. I think they're also available on demand on Stan, which is behind a paywall. And I think you'll find the club rugby, the Shoot Shield, is now Stan and behind a paywall. So it's kind of flipped where Shoot Shield and club rugby used to be free to air. That might now be behind a paywall. And Super Rugby and test matches used to be Foxtel by subscription. And I think that's now free to air. That's what I've taken.
So what James said, what Stan's actually doing is, he's right. All Australian games, Super Rugby games will be televised on Nine, and the Wallabies matches in Australia and New Zealand only. The rest, the Stan are opening up a rugby channel, and all games will be through the rugby channel. So just like Foxtel have the Fox League channel, Nine have set up a Stan rugby channel, and all games will be there live and on demand.
Okay. Well, whenever I get back to Australia, I'm super excited to see what that's like.
VPNs, bro. VPNs,
yeah.
Good.
100%. My laptop thinks it's in Australia most of the time anyway.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, every time you're using your laptop, you got the TAB up, and we're watching either racing or rugby. It's great. I love it. It makes me feel like I'm back home. So it's bloody wicked. All right, fellas. Well, that was a great episode. Breaking news as always. So it's good to get news when you're on the podcast and get told straight away. So I'm super excited to see the ABs and the Pumas kick off this weekend. This is going to be a great matchup. The team was named today, so that was some of the news that I got caught.
It's their A-team,
looking like they're rolling out the A team. Yeah, so it's going to be pretty interesting. I'm going to love to see what's happening. But thank you again, Hala and James, for joining us on the podcast. I love always having a chat to you guys. Thank you for taking the week off and coming back to us fresh. It was awesome. Anything you guys are looking forward to for this weekend's game?
Not watching the All Blacks lose to the Wallabies.
Mate, I love watching the All Blacks when I'm not emotionally involved in them. So I can just be a rugby fan and watch them and appreciate them, and not yell at the TV and not get upset. So I'm looking forward to that.
Straight to sports bet for that multi, hey?
All right, guys, we'll figure out the listings for however you want to watch it. I believe if you're in America, ESPN Plus, Foxtel, I believe, is still your go-to for Australia, Sky Sports for New Zealand. But thank you for tuning into the Bonus Point Rugby podcast. We'll be here next week. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We will talk to you soon. Yeah, awesome, guys. Thank you. Have a good night.
Good stuff.